Now I invite our keynote speaker, Professor Prabhat Ranjan. Please come, sir, and take over.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, Prabhat, we can hear.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Let me try to share my screen. Okay, is my screen visible?
Yes, it is, Prabhat. Thank you.
Let me change my slide. Can you see the change of slide or just not
Indeed.
changing?
Indeed,
It
it's
did
changing.
change. Okay.
Certainly. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So thank you to organizers for giving this chance. I've been on and off connected to PSSI now. Earlier, I used to be a very regular member. I was also editor of PSSI newsletter for 4 years, from 92 to 96. I think last talk I gave here was about 10 years ago, maybe. So today I'm happy to present my keynote address on nuclear fusion in India, past, present, and future. I'll be referring to some of my blogs. I've just mentioned this, it's ranjan.in, because I'm not going to give any details of those. Recently, we have been seeing a lot of news. For example, this one says China's artificial sun sets world record, achieves plasma temperature of 120 million degrees centigrade. And in the description, it's also saying that 160 million for 20 seconds, 120 million Celsius for 101 seconds. Similarly, we had recently a news of NIF achieves breakthrough in laser fusion, where they claimed that they got more energy coming out of the fusion fusion reaction than it was put in. Similarly, there's another startup called Commonwealth Fusion Systems, as MIT spin-off, that creates viable path to commercial fusion power with world's strongest magnets. So many of these news is actually coming on regular intervals for last few years. And so my task here is to try to first, we want to cover the history of nuclear fusion in India, and then the path forward that I would like to see. So as all of us are aware, that aim of nuclear fusion, as somebody said, is that we say that we want to put the sun into a box. The idea is great. The problem is that we don't know how to build this box. So this whole effort of nuclear fusion research has been, for energy production, has been to build that box. I wanted to show you one slide because many people are not familiar with this, especially the young people, that about 101 years ago, year 1922, two important things happened. One was Saha ionization equation that Dr. Meghnath Saha gave, that is considered to the start of plasma physics. I was fortunate that I joined Saha Institute of Nuclear Physics after doing a PhD from US. In fact, right now I'm in US in California, where it's my PhD. That started the plasma physics. And secondly, Arthur Eddington, in same year, talked about nuclear fusion is the process through stars produce their energy. In 1932, nuclear fusion in lab was demonstrated. And since 1955, work on controlled fusion was started. In 1958, if I remember correctly, there was a International Atomic Energy Agency discussion on nuclear fusion. And I believe that it was Dr. Homi Bhabha who chaired the session where peaceful use of nuclear fusion was discussed, and it was decided to open it up. Earlier, it was all classified. But since then, we have been talking about that in next 20 years, we'll be commercializing nuclear fusion. The years have kept on changing, but this 20 years has remained till now the same thing. But there are things happening which makes us believe that next 20 years or even earlier, we might be able to commercialize nuclear fusion. As you are aware that most suitable reactions that we have been using are deuterium or deuterium-tritium reactions, for which we need very high temperatures, 100 to 200 million degree Kelvin. And we have seen that China has already achieved 160 million. Korea has also achieved something similar. We need to use tritium in this, which is radioactive, not easily available, accessible, so it has to be bred through lithium. I'm not going to talk about this reaction because all of you are familiar with this. But what I'm going to show you is that as we start to talk about more about commercialization of nuclear fusion as energy source, the comparison with other sources become useful. So on the top of this, what I'm showing here is that the nuclear fusion allows us to have very high energy density for example, what energy will produce with 10,000 tons of coal, you can produce through 800 grams of deuterium reaction. As we are aware, the deuterium is contained in water, and tritium has to be generated in situ through through the lithium route. Just to give a simple comparison, a 1 bathtub of water plus the lithium in a battery of a laptop can provide enough energy for average family to last for about 50 years. I got into nuclear fusion research sometime in 1980s, early 80s, 81, when I was moving to US to do my PhD. I decided to do this. I've written this blog about that, how I got into nuclear fusion research. And then another blog is talking about my contribution to nuclear fusion technology. As we have, there are a lot of different ways that we have been trying to deal with how to produce nuclear fusion as a net gain energy source. I'm just showing you large numbers of these, the various efforts going on. I'm not going to go into any of these details. But if I look at in a major way, there are 3 ways that nuclear fusion we have been talking about. One, of course, is the STARS, which uses gravitational confinement. And then we have been talking about magnetic confinement and inertial confinement. In IPR or a science institute where I worked for magnetic confinement starting from my PhD days. So magnetic confinement, we have linear devices like magnetic mirrors, or you have toroidal devices, for example, accelerators and tokamaks. This is a mirror device. The mirror device had problems of end losses. So toroidal devices, we twisted them to kind of try to make sure that we don't have end losses, but it also introduces some other issues. So in the magnetic confinement, among the toroidal devices, we have the tokamak on the left side and accelerators on the right side. My own PhD work was combining the accelerators and mirrors into what I call triangular helically linked mirror arrangement. Again, I'm not going to talk about this. This PhD thesis is available. Things started to change when Russia actually tokamak concept was given. So this is the picture of T1 tokamak. It was actually T3 in the series that was built in mid-1960s and came into picture when very high temperatures were actually measured. Initially, it was not believed, then it was verified by international researchers to have very high temperatures. And then the scene on the tokamak scene changed. Many other existing machines were converted into tokamaks. I'm not going to go into any details of the tokamaks, but as we are aware that to heat up the plasma to very high temperatures, we have to use additional means, for example, neutral beam heating or radio frequency heating, to make sure that we can reach the temperatures that are required, 200 to 200 million degrees. In India, actually, we had 2 efforts that were started in early 1980s. One was supported by Department of Science and Technology, and Institute for Plasma Research was set up as a dedicated institute for this purpose. And the second was an effort by Department of Atomic Energy, which funded a project, Hot Plasma Project in SINP, Science Institute of Nuclear Physics. Initially, the IPR was started as a plasma physics program in PRL, and then it came up in a separate institute at its current location, I believe in 1983. In the early 1980s, the plans for 2 tokamaks were built. One was Aditya, and other was SINP tokamak. SINP tokamak was a smaller one, which was actually fabricated by Toshiba. It was actually started to produce its first plasma. It produced in 1987. I joined Science Institute of Nuclear Physics in 1986, sometime in October 1986, after my PhD. So I was there from beginning. Aditya was being built, and finally in 1989, it could achieve its first plasma. The dimensions of 2 were a little different. In terms of major radius of SE, SINP was a smaller one, 30 centimeters, whereas Aditya was 75 centimeters. Toroidal fields in Aditya was 1.5 Tesla, whereas a 2 Tesla in SINP tokamak, and plasma current, Aditya was planned to have 250 kiloamperes, and SINP 75 kiloamperes. I'll not go into more details of these. This is a view of a SINP machine where I worked from beginning, from 1987 onwards, that it was fabricated. It was brought from Japan into Calcutta sometime in March, April of 1987. It took about 3-4 months time to install this machine and get it operational. I participated in this in a variety of ways, starting from setting up data acquisition systems, I was a modeling person actually, but I got into experiments. I developed audio frequency discharging systems, slow bank systems, and many other things to make sure that we can achieve the operational requirements of the machine. And we could produce 75 kiloamperes reproducible plasma around 1992. There's a blog how my data ecosystem that Japanese did not want to touch, they finally agreed to use this and connected my system to the device. Earlier, they used to only depend on everything that they brought from Japan. There's a blog on that. This talks about how I got to become an experimentalist. So I've named it how I became an accidental experimentalist because I was a modeling person. 1995, I was requested to move to IPR, Institute of Plasma Research. So this is Aditya Tokamak. I'm sure you'll be hearing more about this, not this earlier machine, but Aditya upgrade. So I was there in IPR from 95 to 2002, and I was made project leader of Aditya Tokamak sometime in early 96, and also of SST1 machine that was coming up. I was project leader of Operation Control Group, as was mentioned in my introduction. So many changes we made to improve the performance of the machine. I'm not going to go into details, but fortunately, I was privileged to have worked with both the machines that were built in the first generation machine, I can say, and I could contribute to make them operate at higher standards of operations. I'm not going to talk about more of these. There are a number of blogs that I've written to make sure that younger people come to know about what all happened during these early stages of tokamak research in India. This talks about 5 days miracle nuclear fusion reactor, Aditya Tokamak, how we could get it to work in a week, 5 days time to perform properly. There's another mention of rural technology, how it helps fusion reactor, how a photo brought Aditya Tokamak back from death, mystery of error fields in Aditya Tokamak, dancing sparks in Aditya Tokamak. These titles have been given a little bit attractive to attract young people to read these. There's one where there was sudden silence in Aditya Tokamak, where actually suddenly the coils broke apart and how we put it together and finally got it to work again. So many of these things I've discussed in the blogs. Recently, in 2016, I believe the Aditya was dismantled in 2015, and it was reassembled with a lot of improvements that was made into this. That's what we call Aditya Upgrade Tokamak. And this started operation in January 2017. The performance of the Aditya Upgrade is much, much better. And many of the weaknesses that were in the systems, in addition to modifications that have been done, have led to very good results. It was in the mid of 90s that 4 machines were planned, which were addressing new generation machines, and surprisingly, all 4 in Asia. SST1 was talked about in 1994. I was present first time when Professor Kaur, we had a joint meeting of SINP and IPR in 1994. I believe it was in May. And he talked about how government has given approval for 2 machines, SST1 and SST2, at budget of about 800 crores rupees. Around the same time, East machine in China was being planned, K-Star in Korea was being planned, and in Japan, JT60SA, which was a little bit larger machine compared to the other machines. So these three machines that are there in China, in Korea, and India, East, K-Star, and SST1, were all made operational in mid-2000s. The Japanese machine was planned to be operational in 2014, but actually finally, I think it was 2020 that it started to produce plasma and improve it further. That was a much larger machine, and it was to actually complement ITER project. If I look at, so the SST1 was operational, made operational in 2005, then due to technical problems, were disassembled and made operational again after assembly back in 2013. As project leader of SST1 and Operation Control Group, I had to plan out all of that. This is given in a report. I'm not going to go into any of these details, which covers various aspects of these. We introduce the control system, introduce the digital control system. We can introduce the concept of real-time networks and reflective memory, which has been used, and probably I believe the ITER project has also used some of these concepts. If I compare the 3 machines, and if I leave out the Japanese one, which was a much larger machine, there is something to learn from these. If I look at the plasma current, the Chinese machine, which was supposed to receive 1 mega ampere, has achieved its performance. In SST1, as per my knowledge, maybe I'm wrong, we were to go up to 200 kiloampere. We have achieved about 100 kiloamperes. And K-star is supposed to achieve 2 megaamperes. They've achieved about 350 kiloamperes. If we look at the time duration, SST1 was supposed to achieve 1000 seconds. That was one of the unique features that we had planned on. Right now, we have not crossed 1 second. Actually, it is about 650 millisecond. In China, it is supposed to reach to over 1000 seconds. Chinese, they have achieved about 101 second operations, 120 million degree Kelvin, and 20 second operation, 160 million degree Kelvin. And K-star achieved 100 million Kelvin operation with 72 seconds out of 300. In terms of temperature, SST1 is still way behind compared to its own targets of 10 million, and of course, much smaller than the other machines that have achieved large temperatures, which have made big world news. There are a number of other machines that are have been planned. JET has been operational for a long time. If I've shown the volumes here to compare the machines. ITER is under construction. JT60SA, that Japanese, has been made operational. So you can see roughly the dimensions of these. ITER is 800 meter cube, and the next machine that is planned as part of sequence of ITER is supposed to be the demo machines, which is to be much larger. In terms of IPR plans, what I've come across from my sources and the websites of IPR had planned SST2, as I mentioned, in 1994. It was to be slightly bigger than JET and with DT capability. But current status is not known. I could not find much details about this, neither through the Google search or on the internet. So I believe that right now it's on hold. I could see that a small scale spherical tokamak, SST1, is under construction to study the plasma initiation non-inductive current drive. And the idea is to help to realize a volumetric neutron source. It's expected to go for plasma operation second quarter of 2022. But I believe that construction not yet started, so maybe this news is a little outdated. Maybe in the symposium we'll come to know more about it. So that was kind of what I was just talking about the history of past and India's situation. What has happened over the last 10 years or so, there have been a number of technological advancements. One is that high temperature superconductors with high magnetic fields have become possible today. Advanced manufacturing such as additive manufacturing and other technologies have come into picture. Extremely high power superconducting machines have come up that has led to modelings, and even artificial intelligence has made its way into this. Even when I was doing my PhD in 1980s, I used to have access to the world's fastest computers, Cray 1 and Cray 2, that was used by all US researchers and Japanese researchers at one center that was set up in Lawrence Livermore. It was called Magnetic Fusion Energy Computer Center. But today, much more powerful supercomputers, including quantum computers, are starting to come into pictures. What has led to all of this is that suddenly the nuclear fusion seems to be much closer than we expected earlier. So investments in privately funded fusion ventures have grown tremendously over the last few years. I'm just going to show you a table. The right on the top, I have put a project that I'm going to talk more about it, which I'm involved. That is called Project Sunland. It's initiated by a company called Albot, started by Dr. Akash Singh, who is based out of California. The project has been given a seed money of $1 million right now, and we expect to raise about $20 million in next quarter. I'm going to talk more about it. Commonwealth Fusion System has recently, which is MIT spin-off, has got a promise about $1.6 billion. And 2018 they were started. I'm going to talk more about this again later on. And their main thing is STS magnets, using Rebco tapes. The General Fusion in Canada, which has raised $282 million. TAE technology, which has been in existence for 22 years or so, 23 years, has raised about $750 million, maybe 150 to 200 million in the last 2 years. Phoenix Nuclear is more into medical isotopes and so on. They raised $29 million. Tokamak Energy in UK has raised about $87 million. First Light Fusion in UK is again $35 million. And Helion Energy is a different concept in US that has also raised about $2.2 billion. In fact, I'm going to talk about some of these later on. But let me first start with the project that I'm right now involved, and the organizers were wanting to talk about what we are doing, because this is the first time in the country that something like this is being tried. So we have named this project as Project Sanlayan. As some of you might be aware, nuclear fusion is called Napikiya Sanlayan. So Sanlayan is the Sanskrit word for fusion. The first private university of this kind in India. As I mentioned, it is the funding has been done by Silicon Valley innovator investor Dr. Akash Singh. He's founded a company called Albot Technology Private Limited, which is registered in Pune actually. And right now I'm in Silicon Valley, and we have had 3 meetings already, and probably next 2 days also we'll be meeting further. The initial work is nucleated in my university, in D.Y. Patil International University, Akudi campus of Pune. As me as a chief mentor, we have about 6 scientists and engineers that have joined this project. So right now we have only given a space for planning and design work. The actual physical experiment will be done outside the campus. The purpose of this project is to develop nuclear fusion technology in India at the cost 150 to 120 is the cost compared to similar development in Western countries. As I'm going to talk more about it, we are focusing on a volumetric neutron source for 3 purposes: medical isotopes, breeding of fissile fuel, and processing of radioactive waste, and as well as in parallel, the clean long-term energy solution that we have been talking about. In this, actually, we are partnering with Institute for Fusion Studies, University of Texas Austin scientists. Some of you might be familiar with Professor Swades Mahajan and Prashant, who were involved with IPR in the early days. We are also in discussion with some of the Brookhaven National Laboratory scientists for partnership in high temperature superconducting magnets. Just to give a detail of what the initial discussion that is going on, I'm taking this from a presentation by the Institute for Fusion Studies group, where the scientists are involved. Martin is the first author of this. You can see Professor Mahajan and Prashant Valanju, both of them. This paper is talking about development of modeling environment for nuclear fuel cycle incorporating fusion neutron sources based on spherical tokamaks. I'm just going to give you a few glimpses of this to explain what the concept is, which we have taken as a starting point for our work. So as I mentioned, this is going to be a neutron source based on a spherical tokamak. There's a very interesting concept here of single turn TF coil. It was very difficult for us to understand what this was. It's taken a lot of time for us to understand what we are talking about here. Along with the internal PF coils, the single turn TF coil actually tries to do away with superconducting magnet requirements. So it completely is non-superconducting, but it can be run continuously for a long time. So, but this is not target for energy. So it is mainly, as I mentioned, was for neutron as a neutron source, which we believe is the early application of nuclear fusion. One of this, of course, as I mentioned, is to breed fissile fuel from fertile material like thorium. As you are aware that thorium, India has the largest reserve of thorium in the world. Similarly, to boost fissile material content on spent fuel, so by processing of radioactive waste and also to possibly burn actinides along the way. So these two are the main purpose, and also it's possible to produce medical isotope using these. The way this concept has been visualized is that it's a confined plasma with high aspect ratio and high elongation. This is looking like a cylinder kind of thing. This is the inner view of this. The whole thing is encapsulated in a cylindrical replaceable module. So actually this whole thing can be lifted in and out as a module, and it will become a little bit more clear when you see the new. So surrounding this annular container that is placed around, so the inner part is producing the neutrons come out, and there's an annular container, it's like a blanket surrounding it. And this inner module can be taken in and taken out of this and moved to another blanket. So this whole thing is modular that can be lifted in and out of this. And you can see this is using the annular container is using commercial pressurized water reactor fuel assemblies in that annular space. The whole thing is then, the green things that you're seeing on the upper and lower portion is fitted with tritium breeding material to make sure that we can generate tritium which can be recycled back. And this whole thing is then enclosed inside a neutron reflector that surrounds the whole system. And this is enclosed in a toroidal field coil, which provides the return path for the toroid. So this whole thing becomes a single coil. This whole thing is single coil. It's difficult to visualize, but because of this, what happens, the resistance becomes so low in nano-ohms range that actually one does not require it to become, do not need to require superconducting magnets for this purpose. So this is the initial concept that we are using in partnership with them. We are going into engineering details and other scientific validations to make sure that this concept is valid. It's going to be very, very technically challenging. We are not used to this, including the kind of power supply that was designed, including the fact that you may not have any radial ports available, and many other challenges are going to be there. So it's going to be very, very technically challenging. But if we can do it, it will be a major, major breakthrough in terms of this. So we plan to build a series of machines called SUNT1, SUNT2, SUNT FFH, fusion, fission, hybrid, and so on. The SUNT nomenclature we are using as a Sunlight tokamak abbreviation of this. And SUNT sounds so Indian, so we have used that term. To start with, we'll have focus on medical isotope, and we'll use both fusion and non-fusion based methods for this. So we kind of create an industry based on medical isotope. As I mentioned, compact fusion neutron source is what we are trying to develop. STS magnet development will going on in parallel. So as we work on a machine that may not require STS magnet, in parallel we'll be working on STS magnet development, because we believe that for net energy fusion reactor, we would require that. Similarly, if you see the other efforts around the globe, Commonwealth Fusion System is a very well-known one, where they have are creating what is called SPARC system, that is the smallest possible arc. Arc is their machine that is supposed to perform like ITER. So they started in 2018, 2021, they had planned by 2021, they'll have large bore STS magnet. They've reported success in this. And now they're going to start construction of SPARC. And by the 2025, they plan to finish this. In early 2030s, they plan to have the ARC machine at the cost of about $2 billion of similar performance to ITER, but much smaller in size and cost. And recently, they have received 1.6 billion in investments. It was about $250 million till few days ago, but now they've got $1.6 billion once they could actually demonstrate the large bore STS magnets. So as I was saying, this is showing fusion startup builds 10-foot high and 20 Tesla superconducting magnets. And this is about 1.8 billion dollars. I was talking about 1.6, 1.8 billion. So another news few years back about Lockheed Martin talk about the Skunk Works, their team called Skunk Works, where actually they had planned of 100 megawatt truck size fusion device, but they could not meet the promise. It seems to be not as simple as they had expected. Recently, we also seen Wendelstein 7X accelerator coming into picture in a big way. As we can see that the accelerator magnets are very, very complex. And actually, supercomputers have been used to design this. In 2018, the physicists started working on project to set new records for energy density and plasma confinement for a fusion reactor of accelerator types. And they could achieve 20 million, so exceeding the sun's temperature of 15 million. And actually, we expect that they will be able to achieve about 30 million on the same machine. So accelerators have the advantage, as you are aware, that a steady state machine does not require pulsing systems like tokamak, and tokamak we've been struggling to actually achieve very long duration discharges. There's another result that came out of this was that one of the problems that accelerators suffer is from new classical transport related issues, and they found that their design has improved upon this, due to which they are able to get better confinements. The other effort that has been there is inertial confinement. As I mentioned, that National Ignition Facility, which has 192 laser beams, very, very high energy, has been used, and they have claimed success. They have claimed breakthrough in laser fusion. There's another effort going on is using without involving neutrons actually at all. So you produce energy, but no neutrons are involved in this. It's called aneutron fusion. The one particular reaction, proton-boron reaction, has been used in a couple of efforts that are going on. So it's actually produce a nuclear power without nuclear waste. Actually, even no neutrons are produced. This is very, very clean. So even in tokamaks, others which have neutrons coming out will actually be hitting structures, and that leads to a lower half-life, but it is still the structures become radioactive. But in this case, in neutronic fusion, there's no neutrons involved. So it's a very clean one, sorry. So there's one Australian company called HB11, which we have had discussion with them. They've been working on this. work in Prague has shown some improvements in this, and there are other work going on in the thing, like TAE technology in US near Los Angeles, where actually some of the IPR scientists are also working, has shown a lot of progress in recent years. And number of advancements that happened in this was because of AI-based algorithm that Google made available to them, and that led to very interesting results, which could not have been done otherwise. The other area that is happening is the medical isotope production. For example, Phoenix Nuclear is working on medical isotope production, and we are also targeting medical isotope production in the early stage. But as was mentioned, that also in the space area, nuclear fusion has possibilities. The different countries that have looked at into this whole thing in last 10 years or so have tried to promote fusion in a variety of ways. For example, in the US, there's a US fusion community is approaching fusion research with multiple directions. In the private sector, there's a Fusion Energy Industry Association with more than 22 private members, mostly from UK, European Union, Canada, along with United States. But Albert Technology Private Limited, which is supporting our project, is also a member, and I frequently participate in this as well. So all of the industry is coming together to participate and commercialize fusion. And US government has been supporting this through various efforts. I'm not going to go into details. Those of you are interested, I've written a small document on this I can share with you. But for example, there's an INFUSE program of US that actually what it does is interesting is that it supports fusion research by connecting national laboratories with private fusion industry. And they provide grants of $50,000 to $200,000 for the use of national lab facilities and expertise. That means the government is funding private fusion industry to access the technical expertise in national labs. And it was further, US Congress actually added more money to this and to accelerate this funding effort. Similarly, ARPA-E, Advanced Research Project Agency Energy is also supporting this, and many other things that happen in terms of regulatory. Also, Nuclear Regulatory Commission of US has been supporting some of this effort. United Kingdom is also supporting this. They are part of a ITER project, but once they came out to European Union, there was a issue whether they will be able to participate in ITER, but I think they're going ahead with participation with the ITER project. But in addition to that, the UK government is funding through $220 million grants, and they also have an experimental program to actually call a STEP that they want to make the first nuclear fusion-based power reactor by 2040s. They actually asked for land to be provided for this, and many areas have come forward, and they're deciding on the place where they're actually going to design this. And then United Kingdom also hosts a couple of private industry like Tokamak Energy, with which I've been interacting, and First Light Fusion. Tokamak Energy especially is focused on spherical tokamak. You can see that UK fusion energy ambitions underlined in government's 10-point green plan. So nuclear fusion is an important part of UK government's plan. European Union, of course, all of us are aware that ITER project is there in the France, and there are a number of activities going on within European Union as well. In Germany, we already talked about Winnerstein 7X. In Spain, there is more effort and so on. China, of course, we have been aware that China has made great progress through various efforts, and they have achieved major successes in the nuclear fusion research. And the news keeps coming time and again from China. Canada is similarly, there are efforts going on in Canada. Australia also, HB11 is the Australian effort. Now, what is situation in India actually? The situation in India is that among the policymakers, the world nuclear is assumed to be nuclear fission. There's no identity of nuclear fusion. Most of the documents are silent about the fusion part of it. Nuclear is assumed to be nuclear fission. Among national scientific advisory bodies, there's a feeling that we are putting in a lot of effort by participating in ITER project and spending a large amount of budget, so they're happy about it. But there's no recognition of the fact that most ITER members also have matching national projects to take advantage of the technical developments. Years ago, I was trying to, as a national level, trying to come up with national nuclear fusion policy document, but I did not see much interest among the stakeholders, so we could not do this. In the Technology Vision 2035 document that was prepared by TIFAC, which I was heading, we mentioned the energy sector, both the nuclear fusion as well as the nuclear fission hybrid in our documents. But the energy sector roadmap, which has more details about this, after I moved out, I found that those details have been dropped out, and there's only one sentence mentioned about ITER project as far as the fusion goes. last year in 2020, the government came out with a document to promote Atmanirbhar Bharat, and just talking about the part 4 of this new horizons of growth. There are 2 slides I would like to show you this. One was boosting private participation in space activities. And second was talked about atomic energy related reforms. And this is something of our interest. So it talks about establishing research reactors in PPP mode, establishing facilities in PPP mode to use irradiation technology for food preservation. So actually this talked about 2 things. One was for medical isotope and second was agriculture thing. But it does not talk about energy and other things. So that was left out. And again, in this, it was ambiguous. The fission part has not been talked about it. It has been left out of the discussion. Minister Dr. Jan Singh, who is also right now Minister of Science and Technology, once talked about this. He talked about private investment, private industry in nuclear sector. And later on, he clarified that only in medical isotope and agriculture sector. So energy sector and other sectors like we are talking about, fissile fuel and so on, that is not right now in government's consideration for private sectors. Follow-up documents from the space organizations have come up for private sector participation, and at least 5 private initiatives have been started. These announced, but the new atomic energy announcements are not clear about nuclear fusion, both for energy as and non-energy applications. Nuclear fusion based medical isotope production can be very, very useful, and so are other areas of application. But similarly, nuclear fusion based energy production does not have concerns of proliferation, but as research, as a policy making body, we are not aware of this, it's not going to adopt. Sorry, is there an announcement? Sorry, so I'm just finishing my talk. So suggested steps for India actually. So similar to government intervention in other countries, India needs to take quick action along the following lines and more. Government policy towards fusion development has to be very clear. Regulatory and safety norms development covering nuclear fusion application energy as well as non-energy sectors. Protection of intellectual property rights have to be there, which is to make sure that private industry can flourish. Network of public, private, and academic institutes to support fusion technology and workforce development. A special mission mode fund creation to support technology development as well as promote knowledge sharing among national and industry. Policy on use of materials like low-enriched uranium and thorium by private entities as well as other raw materials that are needed for this purpose. I'm suggesting is that right now Plasma Science Society of India has been focusing on this, but as we have seen that large part of Plasma Science Society is also for non-fusion related thing, which is a welcome news. We need to also focus on fusion technology development. And I'm suggesting that an association of some kind like this, Fusion Industry Association of India, could be formed with participation of all government, industry, and academic organizations to promote development of nuclear fusion industry, to make sure that all of us come together for this purpose. So in concluding, nuclear fusion has been making headlines in recent couple of years, showing it's close to realization. For example, Helion Energy is claiming 2024, Commonwealth fusion in early 2030s. And private investment is growing around the globe in spite of uncertainty and cost of developing nuclear fusion technology. With 4 decades of experience, India can develop technology at a much lower cost compared to Western countries, like we have done in IT sector. But it is critical that all those interested in nuclear fusion technology come together and make sure that India does not miss the chance of this technology as the rest of the world moves ahead. Thank you so much. I'll stop at this point. And if there's time left, I can take some questions. Thank you.
Any questions for the speaker? Is there any question from any of the participants or from audience? You can write your questions through chat box as well.
Hi, this is Ganesh here. Can I have a question? Hello?
Sure, Ganesh. Welcome.
Hi, Prabhat. Thank you for a very energizing talk.
Thank you.
As usual. What are your ideas on how are we going to bring public-private partnership in such a delicate, sensitive industry? I mean, you have some ideas?
So personally, as I see that, out of pure coincidence, I received a request about a year ago on 30th October 2020 for starting such an initiative from California. and $1 million was suggested as the initial seed funds to get started. And the investors are going to raise funds further, $20 million, so on. So this is not even a public-private partnership. But as I have talked about is that like many other countries which are promoting public-private partnership, India has been silent on this right now on nuclear fusion part. So that's why we need to come together and make sure that we can lobby to the right people to both sharing of knowledge across this, both in terms of technical knowledge and in terms of funds. But as far as we are concerned, we are not depending on government funds right now. We're only hoping that supportive policy is there, so it does not happen that government comes and says, look, you can't do this, you can't produce energy using nuclear fusion. That is the change we need to make, which is already happening in all the other countries. So India has to follow this. But I'm not so much worried about funds because I believe there's enough international funds available. Also within India itself, there's enough fund available. So what I have noticed is that whenever government gives the fund, there are a number of restrictions that come in, and I've been part of both government and private, so I've seen that happening. I've been involved with funding activity myself. So while public-private partnership should be on a different form, not only of funds, but also technology sharing, we need to, that group I've talked about forming group, which can focus on this, and I believe that all of you would be happy to participate in this, so that we can actually discuss together and take to right people. I'm doing on my own thing, but if we can grow that group, that would be very, very wonderful. Thank you. Maybe we can discuss more offline.
Hello. Yeah, it's Anand Murthy from RRCAT Indore. May I ask a question, please?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, that's a really very nice talk.
Sir,
And
you may, I'm so sorry, sir, for the interruption. You may please switch on your camera.
okay, ma'am. Yes. So I'm Anand Murthy from RRCAT, and it's really very nice talk and very energetic and motivating. And I would be really love, and anybody else would be really happy to see this kind of energy and motivation in the younger researchers of the plasma community. And that would really help to really motivate the researchers for this field. So my question is basically, that was a comment. And my question is basically, you are talking about private and this partnership for energy point of view, right? And so, I mean, the kind of scale of this work involves, as you very well understand, you have been party to this. ITER is a kind of project which has been being handled by so many nations because of this scale involved. So how do you see, I mean, when you say energy, I mean, in India also it has been given importance by IPR and RRCAT and nuclear fusion. But as you can see, the kind of a scale, how do you see this private and government, I mean, participation for the energy point of view? For the small scale applications like medical and agriculture, that seems to be logical. And that may be the reason government has, I think, that slide you showed on the policy. But for the energy point of view, how do you see, I mean, this? What is your idea behind that?
Right. So I shared one slide where I talked about what are the advancements in technology that has happened because of that. For example, what Commonwealth Fusion Systems is talking about, the MIT spin-off, is talking about doing ITER kind of performance in a much smaller machine. That is because of the high temperature magnets with very high magnetic fields. So the ITER project, which was started, actually it has origin in 1985. In 2007, we had the current version of ITER that was signed agreement. It has used technologies which were based on low temperature superconductive magnets and lower magnetic fields. So because of this development, it has become possible to actually make the same device in same performance ITER in a much smaller device. Like the Commonwealth Fusion System talks about $2 billion that they can make ITER kind of performance. As part of that, the Spark machine, that is the smallest possible arc, they are starting to build now. Their first target was to achieve large bore magnets that they have achieved on the target to 2021. And now they're going to construct the Spark machine, which will take 4 years' time, 2025. The designs are ready. In fact, they had made available all the papers related to this open source. They've developed 7 papers in series they have released last year. So if I do not believe that ITER is the way which is going to lead us to the energy source, because as you are aware, the ITER project is now expected to have first plasma in 2026, and another 10 years it will take for the nuclear fusion reaction to take place. I believe that the smaller machines with higher temperature, high magnetic field magnets or other concepts like NIF has shown, or proton-boron reaction, they or the tokamak, they will come up, and probably early 30s we'll start to see private industry, smaller machines coming up with net energy machines. And so that is change that is happening, and it is not in the root of ITER project. ITER project has generated a lot of technological developments, but since it's using the earlier technology, I believe that that's not the path forward. The path forward is being shown, and that's why private investment is happening. And there are many which are claiming that very soon they would start to see net gain of energy. The second part that you mentioned about the agriculture and medical isotope, that is based on what atomic energy has been doing actually, basically. They have not taken into account nuclear fusion possibilities, because as the planners are not aware of these possibilities, because those are not in, still in development phase. So nuclear fusion has not been taken into account. There's no identity of nuclear fusion per se. It is all hidden under fission. So when we use word nuclear in India, the fusion is not talked about, because this is seen as something which is not yet there. So I believe that energy policy should also be there, both in terms of safety, like we have started the work. So we are also working on energy, but we see that as a second step. We want to use as a private entity, we have to generate revenue. So we are trying to use the nuclear fusion first as fast as possible, using it as a neutron source. And that itself is a tremendous thing. In fact, one of our collaborators, Professor Mahajan, who is a well-known scientist, he talked about that if you can achieve conversion of thorium to uranium through this, you will generate as much wealth as Saudi Arabia did when they discovered oil. So I believe that there's a tremendous potential. We have not been, our policymakers have not been made aware of these things, and we need to do that task. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So maybe just, for my understanding, what you are saying is maybe these machines will be much smaller because of this larger magnet, like a Spark is doing that. Something like
Yes.
that. You are seeing the advancement towards the
Yes.
smaller machines, and that may be possible at the private scale, you mean to say, right?
Right. And also there are other concepts that have come up. So in addition to if you look at tokamak or spherical tokamak concept, there are other ways of achieving nuclear fusion also come up. Those are also being tried out.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much. Once again, really nice talk. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
You.
Good
Can I
afternoon,
ask a question? This is Devendra Sharma.
Professor Ranjan. I am Dr. Abhinav Dinesh, Director, BIT Jaipur campus. Now, one question from my side that is taken from the address of our Vice Chancellor and address of Mr. V.K. Sharma, Director, MSME. So they both emphasize on the role of small scale industries in this plasma, just to promote the plasma technology and this fusion also, and the role of young scientists like the junior level of engineers, diploma holders, and technicians. So how they could integrate in this program, could be integrated in this program. Small scale industries and the junior level of technicians, diploma holders, and young engineers.
So right now, as I said, that the private in IPR and SINP, these were the two places where work was going on nuclear fusion. SINP is mostly inactive now. It's only the work is going on in IPR. Ours is the first private startup. So in terms of this industry has to grow in the country to make sure that others can participate in this. But what I see also is that as nuclear fusion gets commercialized worldwide, there will be a lot of requirement for various systems, subsystems, even to the extent of, I was in contact, somebody contacted me from Europe, was talking about firefighting systems for nuclear fusion reactors. So, but I would say that these are not very short-term goals right now. And so we'll have to keep this a little bit away. But within India, I have seen that, for example, if I look at a SINP tokamak or Aditya tokamak or SST1 tokamak, and recently, because ITER project, there have been a number of industries like Larsen Toubro has made the cryogenic system and many other industries in around the country that have actually learned from these experiences. And what we need to do is to actually involve these industries into this. I'm not talking about small scale industry or diploma right now. That will take some time to come. But next 10 years, I expect to see a lot of activities. So as academic institutes, if we can take some step forward, I would have to really think about this. Maybe we can discuss later as to what kind of programs may be helpful in this. Maybe we can discuss that separately, as I'm also a Vice Chancellor of University. I'd also like to see something going on along this direction. But as of now, it's a little bit early stage. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We are extremely grateful to Professor Prabhat Ranjan, keynote speaker for the event, for his inspiring presentation. Your years of research, your depth of understanding, and your ability to present the subject in an interesting way produced one of the most memorable moments for the event. Your approach to anticipate users' interest is highly appreciable. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And there's a poster presentation of this, and there's a question in the chat. I'll answer it to the response in the chat box itself. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you, sir. To conclude the event, we may now request Dr. Ravindra Kumar, Coordinator, Plasma 2021, Department of Physics, BIT, Jaipur Campus, to propose vote of thanks.
A very good morning and hearty welcome to all the respected dignitaries, invited speakers, participants, faculty members, scientific officers, administrative staff members, and dear students. On behalf of the organizing committee, it's my proud privilege to propose a vote of thanks on the occasion of 36th National Symposium on Plasma Science and Technology, Plasma 2021. I would like to thank our chief guest, Dr. V.K. Sharma ji, Director, MSME Government of India, for him on this occasion will certainly enlighten us. Thank you, sir. I convey my deep regards and hearty thanks to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Indranil Manna, Birla Institute of Technology, Mesra Ranchi, for presiding over the function and delivering a very thoughtful address. Thank you, sir. I convey my sincere gratitude and regard to Professor Sasank Chaturvedi, Director IPR, Gandhinagar, for his address and valuable guidance and support. Thank you, sir. I would like to express my sincere thanks to Dr. Prabhat Ranjan, Vice Chancellor, D.Y. Patil International University, Pune, for delivering a very informative keynote address for the symposium. So thank you very much, sir. I convey my sincere thanks to Dr. Abhinav Dinesh, Director, BIT Mesra Jaipur Campus, for his address and also for prolonged encouragement, support, interest, and guidance to organize this symposium. So thank you very much, sir. I would like to thank Dr. Praveen Kumar Atre, President, Plasma Science Society of India, who blessed us with their presence and a thoughtful address. Thank you, sir. I would like to thank Dr. Paritosh Chaudhary, General Secretary, Plasma Science Society of India, who blessed us with their presence. My words are not enough to thank their constant guidance and support during the symposium. Thank you, sir. I am also very much thankful to our delegates of Plasma Science Society of India, who blessed us with their presence and constant guidance and support to organize this symposium. I am also very much thankful to the National Advisory Committee members, Scientific Program Committee members, and the invited speakers for shape up the symposium in a decent manner. I would like to thank local organizing committee members who have worked hard to ensure that the symposium become a memorable and grand success. I would like to thank our sponsors, Plasma and Vacuum Systems, and Aditya High Vacuum Private Limited, for providing the financial support. I am also very much thankful to our faculty members, scientific officers, administrative staff members, and dear students for their presence. I really appreciate the team effort. It's a great achievement for us. Once again, I thank you all for your kind attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now we would like to invite the August gathering for high tea. I would like to request all the participants to stay with us. We'll be commencing our next technical session after 5 minutes.